it is.
Go, go, James Rapien! Go, go, James Rapien! Go, go, James Rapien, you Sports Illustrated beat reporter!
Oh, my God.
It's morphin time, Tom.
James, that is a big league intro. I mean, you get asked to do shows all the time from coast to coast. And, I mean, there can't be anywhere besides here on Off the Bench and Chatterbox Sports where you get that kind of intro.
That's fair. I've never had an intro like that anywhere else. There's no doubt.
Who did that, by the way? Was that Reed Mouse singing that?
It's a Reed Mouse special.
Reed Mouse special.
Oh, my God, is that good? I mean, they got it going on there. And do you like it, though? I mean, it's one thing where it's the best intro, but do you like it? Are you okay with it? Did anybody ask you if you're okay with it?
Yeah, I'm absolutely okay with it. Like the creativity and big Power Rangers fan, if you can't tell.
Okay. All right, we can tell. And everybody in the chat is always asking about. All right, the big breaking news before we get to the draft and everything else going on. Looks as like Brandon Allen's walking out the door. What are your thoughts?
Not shocked. Certainly not shocked. When they've kind of courted a bunch of different quarterbacks from guys in the draft. You know, O'Connell, I know they brought in Aiden O'Connell from Purdue for a pre-draft visit, Dorian Thompson-Robinson out of UCLA for a pre-draft visit. There were rumblings in Dallas about them sort of making a run at Cooper Rush. I haven't confirmed them, but I think it's interesting. And obviously he re-signed with Dallas. And then they brought Trevor Siemian in for a visit as well. And he's a veteran that has ties to Brian Callahan. So I think they've been looking at backup quarterback. I think there are a lot of paths where if you redo the 2023 draft, they end up with one of them. They just went much earlier than I think anybody anticipated. So we'll see who they sign. I would expect them to add a veteran to compete with Jake Browning for that backup job.
When you're now a number of days removed from the NFL draft, and everybody out there and his brother is going to give a grade to this team or a grade to that team. Nobody sees the Bengals more than you do. Mm-hmm. What's your overall impression of how this draft class shakes out?
It's interesting because I think they did a good job. And I also think if you played the draft and replayed it 10 times, they would get a different result almost every time. Like, I wonder how many mocks that they did internally had Myles Murphy making it to 28. I wonder how many of them, the mocks had them completely passing on tight end. But that's just how the board went. And so when you look at it, what have the Bengals done? Well, they've bolstered their depth on offense and defense. They've gotten much, much faster, which after free agency, when they lose Samaje Perine and tight end wise, it certainly becomes a question mark. You lose Hayden Hurst, you bring in Irv Smith Jr., we know his injury history. I think the discussion, and I'm at fault for this, kind of came off of the impression or the thought I had going into the combine. And I remember asking Zach Taylor, especially reflecting on their playoff run and the AFC Championship game, speed, wanting to get faster, not just on defense, but on offense. And they did that, and they waited till the 4th and 5th round to do it, but they were able to do it. So I think they're more athletic at corner, certainly on the defensive line, and then you feel really good about who they were able to add. I think Charlie Jones and Chase Brown are going to be pretty significant contributors right away.
Okay, let's go position by position for a minute here, please, James Rapien, and thank you for your time. It seems to me that there are going to be some guys in his class that clearly are going to contribute. To at what extent, we'll see. Murphy with a chance to make a huge contribution. Who knows? Maybe they all do. But is it safe to say by waiting until they get Brown later in the draft, is it safe to say that Zach Taylor in his comments the other day saying Mixon's a starting running back, that's pretty much a tip of the hand, that they've already got something worked out with him before we even hit June?
No, I don't necessarily think so.
Right.
I don't know. I think it's interesting. The whole Mixon discussion is interesting right now. Obviously, he has the off the field stuff. I haven't seen exactly what happened in court today. I know he was due back in court, and maybe nothing. Maybe it's pushed it to a later date and that continues to go on. But from an on-field perspective, I do think he's the favorite to be the starter, and that's what you can take away from the draft. But is there a scenario where they want him to still take a pay cut and he doesn't want to? Absolutely, I think there is. And while discussions might have already happened, I don't know if anything has been finalized even internally.
Okay, by the way, for those wondering, a judge has set the next court date for Joe Mixon. That was after a hearing early this morning. The next court date is set for May 15th. The judge said the case will have a full resolution by October. I don't know if that's somewhat of a surprise, but that would mean not virtually, it would mean entirely that if they bring him back, he's going through training camp and the first nearly 2 months of the season or a month of the season before there's any resolution on this entire thing. When you look at, let's assume Mixon is back, Brown is there. Okay.
Yep.
One of the big knocks was on Mixon is that he wasn't good in pass protection. Do they feel like, A, he could get better at that if he wants to get better at it? B, is Brown any good at it? And C, do they need to go find another running back who is good at it? Because that seems like all we talked about at times last year.
I think right now their third down back is Travion Williams. If the season started tomorrow, they would trust him in pass protection. Joe Mixon, I could say, yeah, he's going to get better at it. We have too big of a sample size. He was drafted in 2017. I think they know what he is. He knows what he is. And not that he's a bad blocker. Pass protection doesn't mean physically being able to block. It's completely different. There's just being able to read the defense and see exactly where the blitz is coming from. And if this linebacker or this defender, I mean, there's a lot to it mentally. And that doesn't mean that Joe Mixon can't do it some of the time. But obviously he was behind Samaje Perine in the pecking order there. So can he do it a little bit more this year? Maybe. I think that could be realistic. Is he going to be their every down back where he's on the field 75% of the time because they really trust him in all passing situations? No, I think it would be Travion Williams today. Chase Brown, it's tough. It's tough to evaluate college running backs in pass protection. And did he do it a little bit at Illinois? Yes. Did he play a ton of snaps at Illinois? Yes. Does it feel like he'll be able to pick it up? I think so. I think the coaching staff is confident in that. But it's still a lot to ask from a rookie. So we'll see if he can slide in there. But that dynamic is interesting because I think Chase Brown is a really good runner. I think he gives you something in the passing game, and he's a high-end athlete. And so how does he mix in with it? Do they feel, like you asked, if the need to add a proven veteran? There are still some veterans out there. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's why I haven't ruled out the idea of, if Mixon pushes back on a pay cut, which I still think they're going to ask, then maybe they say, okay, well, we're not bringing you back at this number, and that's that. At the same time, could I see them bringing him back at that number, a $10+ million salary, a cap hit of over $12 million? I could. I think that they would make a face as they do it. But the path now to that happening, I think, is more likely than it was a few weeks ago.
Okay, the other thing, and you were not necessarily in agreement with me on the last statement. I'm curious how you feel about this one. By them not going out and getting an offensive lineman, and again, I mean, if there's any topic we've talked about ad nauseum beyond description, it's the offensive line and hit with the injuries. Once they got to the playoffs last year, Lyle Collins, declaring that he's going to be ready to go. We'll see. I hope he's right. But by them not drafting a tackle, and they had a couple of situations there where they certainly could have. Does it say to you that Williams is going to be all in on the move, or if it's not Williams, they certainly like the idea of Carman maybe being there until Collins comes back? Did they just feel very good about their depth and their talent level at right tackle?
I think all signs point to Jonah. And it's so interesting. You talk about Joe and then you go to Jonah, and they're kind of grouped together, but the situations are just so much different because one has a fully guaranteed contract. And that's why you only saw, by the way, 12 members of the first round in the 2020 class get their fifth-year options picked up. And that's going to continue because it's fully guaranteed. And that is a risk. If you have any questions about a player, why would you want to guarantee a fifth year? And the Bengals did it last year. And I think looking back, would they do it again? Maybe, but it's certainly much tougher now. And they probably, if they knew that Jonah was going to deal with the injuries that he dealt with in 2022, then they wouldn't have. But who knows that? You don't have a crystal ball. So, no, I expect him to start at right tackle. I expect him to be the right tackle. Not that the Bengals will crown him right away, but he has no choice. His money is guaranteed, and he can't leave that on the table. It's not guaranteed if he doesn't show up. So he's got to show up. He's got to play. And he's in a contract year where he can go out and make really good money and show the league that he can be a high-end right tackle. And I don't know if he's going to be that, but I expect him to be a solid right tackle, which is better than what they've had. Lyle Collins showed flashes of it last year, but he was dealing with multiple injuries. Jackson Carman is certainly maturing, it appears. And so I think he would be the favorite for the swing tackle spot, where he can back up Orlando Brown Jr., back up Jonah Williams if Jonah Williams gets injured again, which he has a history of doing, and be that guy that kind of stabilizes both tackle spots. So I think the Bengals feel good about their depth at tackle. There were some paths, I think, to them taking an offensive tackle in the draft. It just didn't fall to them. And I think they deserve credit for that, not reaching at the next best tackle at 28, which, I think a lot of people wanted them to take a tackle there or take DeJuan Jones, even though there were plenty of red flags where they didn't want to necessarily reach on a player like that. In the past, they might have taken Jones at, say, pick 60, even though there were some character concerns and work ethic and does he love football and weight concerns, all of those things. And instead, they stuck with their board. So I think they deserve credit for that.
Okay, the last thing I want to ask you a little bit about. The two receivers they took, clearly the kid from Purdue. I mean, it's Purdue, it's big time, it's all those kinds of things, right? A great athlete. I know it's a late-round pick, and the chances are probably not all that great, but there's a lot to be said about the kid from Princeton. I mean, this strikes me as one of these kind of kids where he's coming in with an attitude. I mean, he's already said, his quote was something along the lines of, there are a lot of dudes out there that are getting a lot more pub than me, and I'm better than a lot of them. I love the coach he played for there at Princeton, and Bob Serace, a former coach for the Bengals there. Obviously, he's gotten good coaching in college. What are you hearing about him?
They loved him. They loved him during the pre-draft process. Wide receivers coach Troy Walters took him to, out to steak dinner. He spent a couple days, maybe not full days, but overnight here in Cincinnati and was one of their top 30 visits. And there's a lot to love. I mean, in the sixth round, and I've written this, in the sixth round, usually you're getting production, but not the high-end athleticism. Or you're taking a chance on a guy that didn't really produce, but has that high-end athleticism. And he's done both. It was just at the level that he played at. He played in the Ivy League. He didn't face a bunch of NFL competition. He didn't face certain coverages and press coverage and different things that these NFL cornerbacks are going to throw at him. And then obviously he just ran a few routes. He's going to have to get used to a full NFL route tree, but there's a lot to like. And you mentioned it. I think he plays with an attitude, but the thing you like the most, in a good way, by the way, the thing that you like the most is the fact that he's probably outside of Jamar Chase and maybe even with Jamar Chase, the best athlete on the team.
Yeah.
Like this dude was, you look at like the pre-draft metrics, and I go to at MathBomb on Twitter, Kent Lee Platt puts these together, the relative athletic scores. He was 8th in the entire draft class. He's just unbelievable. I mean, one of these freakazoid athletes that produce, that knows how to play football, that just needs some refinement and needs to get used to the NFL level. So there's a lot to like about him. I know they were really excited about landing him in round 6.
Yeah, I think I'm going to end up keeping an eye on him as much as anybody, not because of necessarily what he's going to do this year, but just to see kind of where that whole thing progresses. If you take Murphy out of the mix, and maybe I shouldn't, last question, if you took Murphy out of the mix, which of the draft picks gets the most playing time and potentially has the most impact on this team in 2023?
And I will answer it, but one thing on Iosivas that I would throw out there, why not try him on kickoff returns?
No doubt about it.
Elite athlete, 6'2", guys that are taller than him return kicks. Let's see if he can return kicks. I would put him back there and let Darren Simmons work with him, even though he's never done it before. That said, and maybe you could throw in Miles Murphy. Obviously, he's going to impact the pass rush and give Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard breathers at times. So he's valuable. Not downgrading that at all. I love the DJ Turner pick. Haven't really talked about him much. I think he gives you depth and is eventually going to start high-end athlete. But the guy that's going to make the biggest impact, to me, is the guy that impacts the most important part of the franchise, which is Joe Burrow. And who does that, Thom? You briefly mentioned him. It's the guy that ran a full route tree at Purdue. Charlie Jones is going to be Joe Burrow's best friend. I think he has the ability to come in right away. He's an older prospect. He's mature and produced 110 catches last year, 1,300 plus yards, 12 touchdowns, played outside receiver at Purdue. So he faced these high-end corners, Joey Porter Jr., he faced DJ Turner. He faced these guys, and he beat them, had success against them. And it's because he's such a great route runner, but he's also really athletic. And that's the part where you didn't know just watching him how he would be. He ran a 4.43, and all of the agility testing is there as well, 3-cone and all of that. So I think he's going to be Joe Burrow's best friend in a few years. This year, he's going to be their fourth receiver and should contribute on offense right away. The other thing he does is he gives you an electric return man as a punt returner. You don't necessarily need to put him on kickoffs, and maybe he does return kickoffs. But as a punt returner, I think he gives you some electricity back there and has a chance to hit a home run anytime he touches the ball. So really good returner, did that for years in the Big Ten. And then last year he showed the world what he could do as a receiver. So I think he's going to be a big part of this team. I know he's older, and he's a fourth-round pick. 130 guys went ahead of him, but I think he's going to have an impact.
And that's why I'd like to see this year, if they're confident enough in their offensive line, and of course situations dictates what you do in your formations, I would not be surprised to see the Bengals start implementing a little bit more, going 4 wide and spreading the field wide open. I mean, you agree with that?
Yeah, I do, and for a few reasons. One, because of everything I said about Charlie Jones, and we know about the big three. But the other part of this, tight end is a bit of a question mark. And so maybe you still run your offense with Irv Smith Jr. and Drew Sample. But let's say Irv Smith gets dinged up. You're not going to throw to Drew Sample a bunch. So you adjust, and maybe you go with 4 wide receivers some weeks. So I agree with you. I think that opens up that possibility. And the other thing it does, and I hate to bring this up, but on 3rd and 8, when you're playing the Chiefs and you need a first down, you have another guy that can get open against man-to-man coverage. Because Hayden Hurst didn't get open on that 3rd and 8. And Trenton Irwin didn't get open on that 3rd and 8. And the game really changed when Tyler Boyd went down.
Yep, there's no doubt. That's a great, great point there. James Rapien covers the Bengals for Sports Illustrated's AllBengals.com. Also, one half of Locked On Bengals podcast. Mr. Rapien, we thank you so much. And even though we're saying goodbye, fellas, we have to run that one more time as we say goodbye to James Rapien. Casey, can you pull it up?
Yep, here we go.
All right, one more time. This is that good.
All right.
Go, James Rapien! Go, James Rapien! Go, James Rapien, you Sports Illustrated beat reporter!
You would think, Thom, that I would have the nerve to open these things, but I still have not opened them. So there you go.
That's great stuff. James, we always thank you for your expertise, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. Take care.
All right. Have a good day. James Rapien like to have a little fun with that. That's Big League. Who edited that?